What's up everyone? Welcome to my third and final video of the 2024 Jeep Wrangler Sahara 4xe review series. In the first video, which you can check out here, I reviewed the exterior and drivetrain of the Jeep, and in the second video I did a detailed review of the interior, which you can check out here. In this video, I'll talk about one of the biggest issues plaguing the 4xe Jeeps, and then take this one for a road test. Keep watching till the end where I give a final overview and purchase recommendation on this Jeep. While you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Possibly the biggest and definitely most discussed issue facing the Jeep 4xe is F.O.R.M or F.O.R.M. F.O.R.M stands for Fuel Oil Refresh Mode. When in this mode, the Jeep uses only the gas engine and you are prevented from using the electric motor. There are two general events which triggers this mode. The first is due to old fuel in the tank. If you have not added more than 4 gallons of fuel in the last 90 days, then the Jeep enters F.O.R.M mode to burn off the old fuel. This can happen if your commute is short and you regularly charge the battery so that all of your commute is done on electric power only, so the gas sits in the fuel tank and gets stale. Getting out of this mode is just a matter of driving to burn off the old fuel and or adding fresh fuel to the tank. The second reason F.O.R.M is triggered is due to oil dilution. To understand why this happens, we need to remember that the gasoline engine in the 4xe is a direct injection engine. So let's talk about how it works using my simplified diagram here. A direct injection engine has all the usual components of a regular engine, but the main difference is that the fuel injector squirts gasoline directly into the combustion chamber instead of the intake manifold like most regular engines. This is a common design in newer engines because it helps with emissions and fuel economy. However, since the 4xe is a plug-in hybrid and it switches between the electric and gas motors, we can have a situation where immediately after fuel is injected into the cylinder, the system switches to electric mode and the gas engine shuts off. Now the cylinder has fresh fuel sitting there, and since there isn't a perfect seal between the piston rings and cylinder wall, the fuel leaks into the oil pan. When the fuel mixes with the oil becomes diluted, which reduces the viscosity or thickness of the oil. This is bad because it means the oil can no longer lubricate the engine properly, which can obviously damage the engine. The engine sensors measure the dilution level of the oil, and when it passes the minimum threshold, it enters F.O.R.M mode and EV operation is prevented. By entering F.O.R.M mode, the gas motor is run with the aim to heat up the oil and cause the fuel to evaporate through the PCV system to get burned off in the engine until the oil dilution level is below the minimum threshold. Sounds simple, but as with most things in life, it's not. The trick is to get the oil hot enough. The Jeep's normal operating temperature is 194 degrees Fahrenheit or 90 degrees Celsius. Depending on your length of commute, speed of driving, and ambient temperature, it might take a while for the engine to reach operating temperature, and even when at that temperature, you need to drive long enough for all the fuel in the oil to burn off. Depending on how you drive, this time can vary. Worse yet, if you live in colder states, you may not even reach normal operating temperature because of the cold winter air flowing through the grille. Jeep owners have had F.O.R.M clear in as little as 2 hours, while others get stuck in this mode for months. In the worst case, when the oil dilution level is too high, F.O.R.M is triggered and the system will instruct you to do an oil change. However, customers have complained that even after this is done, F.O.R.M still persists. Usually at this point, they take it to the dealer only to find out that something in the system is faulty. When you're stuck in F.O.R.M, you lose the benefits of the electric motor and you get the regular gas motor MPG, which is 20 miles per gallon at best. This F.O.R.M problem has become such a large issue that there are tons of forum posts, a dedicated Facebook page, and there's actually a class action lawsuit against Jeep. Keep this in mind as we take the Jeep Wrangler Sahara 4xe on a road test next. Stay tuned as we explore the driving characteristics and I give my final purchase recommendation for this Jeep. So we're going on the test drive now in the Jeep 4xe. we're going to talk a bit about how it is to drive, the handling characteristics, road noise, wind noise, that sort of stuff. So general handling characteristics, it is a Jeep. The suspension is a bit hard, especially compared to one of the more sort of typical consumer-facing SUVs. You're thinking about things like your RAV4, your Highlander, of course, things like the G-Wagon and Range Rover, they're going to ride so supple. This does ride a little bit harder. I would say if I were to compare this to my lifted 3rd-gen Tacoma, I have an Icon lift all around. This actually rides harder than that. But, you know, like I said, I think if you're going to buy a Jeep, you kind of expect not to get the most supple ride. It's not terrible. It's not like, you know, you would not be able to drive and it would be damaging your back or anything like that. I would say it's acceptable for what it is, but don't expect it to be anything crazy and fancy. At the end of the day, you're driving a vehicle which was built to, you know, be primarily used in an off-road type setting. Well, let's talk next about braking. As I mentioned a little bit earlier in the video, the braking is not as progressive as I would like. I feel like if you mash the brakes halfway, you don't actually get half the amount of braking power. You get maybe more like 30% braking power. But then when you mash, you know, maybe another 25% brakes, then you'll get like a whole 75% brake power. So it's not very progressive. That's a sort of driving style, I think, that you just have to get accustomed to. Also, if you put on regen braking, as you know, would utilize the deceleration of the vehicle to charge up the battery. So that sort of applies a braking force for you. So you would just actually, you could just actually rely on just using your accelerator and removing your foot off of it and letting the car coast a stop, because the max regen is very forceful. Steering wise, we all know about the issues with Jeep steering, the so-called death wobble. I would say I find that the Jeep steering is very, very light and very, very sensitive. More sensitive and light than I would actually expect. This again was something that I think I had to get accustomed to, because compared to my Tacoma WRX, you know, that has a little bit more of a stiffer steering. You can actually see here how much play we have in the steering wheel, and that becomes especially pronounced as you're going faster. So that's one thing to take into consideration. Okay, so wind noise. Sure, something a lot of you all are thinking about. I'm sure you all have seen the meme where there's a picture of a Jeep and then there's a picture of a cow, and someone ran the computational fluid dynamics on the aero of the Jeep versus the cow, and the cow is more aerodynamic than the Jeep. Having driven this Jeep for the last week or so, I have to say it probably is kind of true. Right now we're going at around 47, 48 miles per hour, and there is a lot of wind noise coming in. I mean, considering the fact that this is running just all season tires, so basically street tires, not even all terrains, so it's not an aggressive pattern. There's a lot of noise coming in, so actually I'll remove the noise cancelling effect from my microphone now so you can hear some of that noise. Okay, so I actually made a bit of a mistake just now. When I started this part of the road test talking about wind noise, I actually had noise cancellation off. And just now when I pressed the button, I actually turned it back on. But with the noise cancelling on, you can actually still hear the wind noise and you can still hear the cars passing. Right now, like I say, I'm going a little bit faster with 51 miles per hour. And I think this is actually quite a lot of road noise. There's just wind noise. You can even hear the cars as they're passing. I don't know if you heard that. That was like 3 cars that just passed. So Jeep supposedly put more sound deadening in this model. We're going to take off the noise cancelling now. Jeep supposedly put more sound deadening in this model, but it honestly, you can't can't tell if they really have made a good effort at it, because it still is quite noisy. In terms of acceleration, like I mentioned before, this is the third most powerful drivetrain lineup in the Jeep's lineup. So I have no problem accelerating, especially with the electric motor to provide that extra torque. So accelerating from an off ramp, accelerating out of a turn or to merge onto a road, it's pretty easy. There have been even times when I heard the tires chirp a little bit, so that's not too much of a concern. Comfort wise, I think these seats are quite decent seats, especially for the driver and passenger. But I think for the rear passengers, it will be a bit of a tighter fit. Shorter trips might be okay depending on the size of the people who are sitting in the back. Maybe if you have just like, 2 teenagers and 1 toddler, you might be fine. If you're going on a road trip though with like 3 regular sized adults, probably going to be faced with complaints of needing to stop to stretch legs, because it'll be quite tight there in the back for them. But at least for the driver and passenger, it's fine. Let's talk about the performance of the transmission. This is an 8-speed automatic transmission, as we talked about earlier. Honestly, I think it performs fine. I have no issue with it. I'm not a fan of any kind of automatics in general, obviously. I have a manual vehicle for both my truck and sports car. But I have to say, honestly, this is a bit of a pleasure to drive. It not having to shift gears, especially where we are right now, going up and down these hills and the stop and go traffic. It's actually a little bit nice. I think the gearing as well as the transmission programming is pretty good. I don't feel like it's hunting for gears. It knows when to shift, it knows when to shift up, it knows when to shift down. That, along with the switching from electric to the gasoline engine, is actually really seamless. I have driven previous hybrid cars where once you get that shift happening, you feel this sort of jolt or this shudder. Honestly, the only thing that you hear is just the motor starting up and shutting off when it's switching from driving electric to driving in gasoline. And I don't think that's too much of an issue, to be honest. Sound-wise, the engine is a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, so don't expect any sort of mind-blowing sound out of that. It's pretty muted and it doesn't have any sort of, not like one of those really nice 4-bangers like SR20 or anything like that. So, don't expect anything great out of that. Okay, so what's the conclusion of this? What's the summary? Would I recommend buying someone to buy this vehicle? Would I buy it my own self? So I would say, looks wise, it looks like a Jeep, and the Jeep looks really good. I always have liked how Jeeps looked. The hybrid system is nice. It really will help you save money in fuel, but that really depends on how you drive. So the fully charged, your range on this electric battery is 21 miles. If your daily commute, so to and from work or from home to work, to dropping off kids, picking them back up, etc., if whatever your daily commute is within that 21-mile range, then you can actually make really good use of the electric mode or even the hybrid mode. If your workplace has a charging infrastructure, then you can also charge up and work. So a lot of that benefit comes in when you're able to run in that full electric mode, or you're able to at least charge up your battery so that you can run in hybrid mode effectively. If, however, that's not the case and your commute is more than 21 miles, then it means that you're going to mainly be running with the gasoline motor, and you might be switching back to the electric motor at certain points in times, but generally you're going to be running in that gas mode. When you're running in that mode, you have the same type of fuel economy that you would have with a regular Wrangler. And that's actually the mode I've been running in since I've had this vehicle, because I don't have infrastructure to charge it properly. And believe it or not, my fuel economy right now is 18.1 miles per gallon, which is really bad. I guess considering this is a hybrid. If this wasn't a hybrid, it actually gets, same amount of mileage as my Tacoma right now. So that's something you have to take into consideration quite a lot. Also, remember that this vehicle costs basically $10,000 more than the regular Wrangler Sahara. So you're going to be paying $10,000 more, and if your commute isn't within that 21 miles, then you're going to be losing out on the benefits of that electric motor and that electric battery. If, however, that's not the case, then you can really get that back. Especially, you can really get back that $10,000, especially when you consider the rebates or cashbacks or tax incentives or whatever your state might have when you're purchasing a hybrid vehicle. The other thing to consider too is that most times people buy Jeeps because they want to go off-roading and they want to take advantage of that off-road credibility and history and technology. But it's worthwhile to remember that this specific configuration, while it does have four-wheel drive and it can go off-road, remember you don't have the beefier suspension and beefier axles like the Rubicon would have. You don't have like the sway bar disconnect. You don't have front and rear lockers either. So you do have off-road capability, but not as much as the Rubicon. So that's just something else to take into consideration. Last thing to take into consideration is that F.O.R.M mode, which we mentioned earlier. Final recommendation is this: if you live in a state which is a generally warm state, so we're talking about not states like in the Massachusetts, New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Chicago, like that sort of area. If you're not in one of those states, basically any state which doesn't experience like extreme winter temperatures, and if your general commute is within 21 miles, or you have the facility or the infrastructure wherever you go to charge up, whether that be to the mall, to your job, then I would say I think it's a good idea to purchase this vehicle. If not, if you're purchasing this vehicle only looking for better fuel economy, but your commute isn't 21 miles, or wherever you live doesn't have the facilities to charge, then I would say maybe you're better off buying a different hybrid vehicle. Maybe not a plug-in hybrid, maybe just a regular hybrid. Maybe something like the hybrid RAV4 or the hybrid Highlander or something like that. If not, then go out, buy one of these, have fun, let me know how it goes. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this review. This was actually a really cool experience for me, first time reviewing something. Let me know what you think. If you have one of these, let me know if you agree, disagree with so many things I've said. And yeah, like, share, subscribe, and thanks for tuning in.